I got to tell you, we actually started about 5:30 this morning, and the activity has not quit. The staff didn't leave here last night until probably well after 8. You know, people say, well, why didn't you open on Sunday before for early voting? I mean, they have so much to do. There was just no way between yesterday and all of the rest of it. So this morning, everybody gets in here about 5:30, so we can start making sure that all of the precincts are up and operating. So when people hit the door at 7 o'clock in the morning, they're ready. So what you see behind us is the phone bank. And the phone bank in here is taking phone calls from all of the precincts to make sure that everybody's up and operating, that all the equipment is working, that the signs are out, the doors are open. And you know, it's crazy because when you're running 70 precincts and over 1,000 people that we had to bring in part-time, there's always something that goes wrong. Cindy and Laura, worked until real late last night making sure that all their poll workers were there. And again, even this morning, even after working the phone late last night, they found poll workers this morning who, one reason or another, couldn't show up, couldn't be there. One lady is on her way to the hospital. So, you know, that just goes on when you're bringing in that many volunteers and that many poll workers. So right now what they're doing in the phone room right now is actually calmed down a little bit. I know it sounds nuts, but you've got the phone room going. Debbie's over there still stamping in absentee ballots that came in last night. Between yesterday and today, we've received another 2,000 plus absentee ballots. They just keep rolling in. And people have until 7 o'clock tonight, the night of the election. It has to be in the door, okay? And they can drop it off at the front door, they can bring it into the desk. We prefer that they bring it into the desk so we can time stamp them in immediately. But it'll go on like that all day long. We'll get a little lull probably around 10 o'clock because the people who are on their way to work will stop and vote. Somewhere those will be going down at lunch. We'll go back at lunchtime, but we'll have a little bit of lull in there around 10 o'clock. Gives us a chance to regroup. One thing I like about this day, all of these people have brought in food and cookies and crackers and goodies, and we got more sweet rolls out there, so we eat good, but they'll be continuously busy all day long. The prep for the election really starts about 2 months out. It really does, as they're trying, and the poll worker recruitment, Cindy and Laura, it goes on year round. It really, truly does. As people, they try to recruit these volunteers, they know what they need. About 2.5 months ago, we started the training. We train for every election. Even though some of them were trained for the primary by state statute, we have to retrain again. There's no such thing as overtraining for this because a lot of these people, you know, they're only working every other year. And as you're trying to bring them up to date on the equipment and any changes that we've made, changes in the law. So we start a long time out. If you'll remember this year, we closed down a lot of precincts and re-precincted. So we really pushed the absentee ballot. And right now it looks like we're going to have the largest return of absentee ballots we've ever had in Manatee County, including the presidential election of 2010. I think we got back 45,000 then, and I think we're dancing on that number right now. But we did mail out the largest number of absentee ballots ever, and so we're really encouraging people to take advantage of that. I would say that hopefully by the 2016 presidential election, we will double that number again. And if we can get that up to 100,000, that would mean 50% of the people in Manatee County are voting early or voting by mail. And that's really what we're looking to accomplish here. I got to tell you, I was so lucky when I got this job because Bob Sweat and Nancy Bignell left me with an unbelievable staff. They really did. And then I was lucky enough to find the best number 2 guy in town, Scott Farrington, who had been down in Sarasota for 10 years. And so Scott came and joined us, and that really made all the difference. I don't think I could have done this job without him. And then we were lucky, of course, we had Sharon, who's been here well in excess of 20 years, and she's the chief deputy. Laura and Cindy have been recruiting these people for years. And it's interesting, they will recruit over 1,000 people that they only see every other year. It's amazing to me the number of people that they know by first name, who they are, what their life is about, their kids, their grandkids, because so many have gone on for so long. We have a lot of turnover. A lot of our people are retired, and so you lose them. They either get tired of working or unfortunately pass away or whatever. But by and large, the volunteers are pretty darn sharp, okay? And we kind of weed them out, to be honest with you. Some of them, they don't like the whole training period, or they don't like coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning, or whatever it is. And so you have a lot of turnover there. But again, Cindy and Laura do a wonderful job of continuously, year-round. It's not just the election year, year-round they're talking to these people. And then of course the training starts. Laura does all of the training for us, and she's done a wonderful, wonderful job of pushing it. But even there, you get out and you can hear from the phones ringing in the back that a little bit of problem here, and it could be a even machine not quite working yet, a AccuVote machine didn't quite come on yet, the signs were gone, or the door locks were not there, whoever was supposed to open up the church didn't get there. So we've got all of those little issues that they deal with. And then you can see on the computer screen as they bring them all up, everyone comes up. When we get everybody in the green, we're happy. And we have a list out there of everybody. And if they call in and have an issue, we immediately call them back. Kevin will be working with all of the EVIT equipment over there. And so we just keep working with it. We've just got a great staff. I got to tell you, and this sounds amazing, I mean, since I'm going to be 70 years old and been voting for 20 or 50 plus years, how little you actually know of what happens here, okay? But when I see staff literally spend hours and hours trying to find one ballot, okay, because one envelope came in with no ballot in it and they're going nuts, where's that ballot? And if you'll remember, during the primary, we had an election up there that was won by 3 votes, sitting county commissioner, and it wasn't until probably 10 o'clock at night that we were able to determine where that one ballot was. And so people should know in Manatee County, every vote counts. We make sure every vote counts. We track everything that comes in. We know who voted, we know when they voted, we timestamp it in. Every time an absentee ballot comes in, it's timestamped. We can tell you exactly when we got it, and then we can follow it all the way through. In fact, the people who are watching this, they can go online to votemanatee.com, and they can track and make sure that we counted their ballot, okay? If we get some in that there's no signature on, we immediately contact them either by phone or mail or both. Ask them to bring in an affidavit. We try to fix those right away. The one that really messes us up is a bad signature. A lot of people sign their voter registration card on those electronic pads over the tax collector's office, and that doesn't look like anything like the signature that's actually on their ballot. So we really do encourage people, especially if they sign one of those electronic machines, stop by the office someday, update their signature, send us a new copy of their signature, a new ID, and they can do that by mail. Okay, if they'll contact our office, we'll send them out the paperwork. But we want to make sure that their signature is up to date. It kills the canvassing board when we look at a signature and we can't make hide nor hair out of it. There's a lot of people who would look at some of the signatures that we do approve and say, how did you possibly see that? But you look for that one little curly Q in the C or the E or the G or whatever it is that's in their name, and you try to find a way to accept that ballot. If we're going to make an error, we would rather make an error on the side of the voter than the other way. So you really look through those things, Charles, and then you just fight and fight and fight. And then of course today, we will be going here till probably 10 o'clock tonight. Even though our results, most of them will be in around 7:30. We'll start posting results around 7:15, 7:30 as they come in. But by the time you settle down, by the time you go through that last absentees, by the time the canvassing board looks at those last absentees, it could be over 10 o'clock before we get out here tonight, and they started at 5:15 this morning. So it'll be a long day.
Well, some of the voters who are arriving have gotten a vote by mail, and they did not vote their vote by mail, and they're there at the polls right now trying to vote. So the poll clerk will call us and ask us exactly if this person has voted, and they're basically verifying it with us to make sure that they did not turn in their vote by mail ballot and that they are good to vote. So that's basically what's happening with most of our phone calls this morning. Absolutely. Any precinct that calls in, there's 21 of us here taking the calls so that we can quickly and get that voter in and out as quickly as possible. It takes a lot of training. We ramp up far in advance of Election Day. I know everyone thinks that when they have election day, we just show up and it all happens in one great failing swoop, but this takes quite a bit of ramping up. So a lot of training goes into a lot of poll workers. Right now we have, of our staff, I think there's 4 of us in the phone bank today of the 21. The rest are poll workers or phone bank that were specially trained just for the phone bank. A special software was put together this particular election by our assistant supervisor, Scott Farrington, who is a genius when it comes to some of the software ideas. So we came up with something new, which has made it so very efficient. During the primary, it was tested and worked well, so it had a couple of changes that made it even better for this one. So we have a special software, and everyone is able to utilize that to get the information quickly from the precinct so that when they're up and running, we have all the pertinent information put into the system, which tells Sharon, who takes care of the overview of the phone bank, exactly who is up and running, who we need to call, who we have to make sure if there's any problems so that we can expedite all that good stuff so that all the polls open at 7 o'clock as planned. Sure. The integrity of this office, I've only been here about a year and a half, is above and beyond the call of duty. We get a lot of voters who call out of concern that want to know, does their vote count? And absolutely. The vote by mail, I can't express that more than anything else, is really the greatest way to go. You have the option to sit and decide exactly, read about the issues, find out who you want to vote, like my husband and I did, and it gives you the opportunity to not be surprised when you get to the polls. I can't express that enough. And vote by mail is the very first ballot that goes through the system. I know from Ohio, where I'm from, that's not the case. In a lot of different states, that's not the case. But vote by mail here is the very first ballot that goes through the ballots boxes here at the Supervisor of Elections office. So that's what I want people to walk away with, the idea to vote by mail in the future. Definitely. It's the best way to go.
We focus on making sure the precincts are all up and ready to receive voters. And then after that is all complete, then we are answering questions from all the precincts from the clerks that call in, especially if, like, vote by mail, if they didn't receive them or they haven't mailed them back, so they're okay to vote, and we look them up just to make sure that they can vote. Well, I always worked in the absentee department, which I loved my job. I really did, and that's probably why I came back, because I really do. I love the process and just watching it work. And the 14 years I was here, I loved it, and I'd really like to come back, maybe a little part-time, but it's very complex. You get them ready to mail out. Now they do it through mailings for the first run because it's so huge. But I'm not in that department right now. But when we were doing it, we did it all by hand. Yeah, so it took a little longer. But the process coming back is the same. We check the signatures to make sure they match. If they don't match or if something else is wrong, they all go to the canvassing board, and the canvassing board is the one that either rejects them or accepts them. I would just say that that's a very interesting job, and the outside of the public don't understand how complex it is and what goes on here. And when they do work, like even the phone bank here, they find out that it's a little more involved than what they think it is.
This is really one of the busiest places, truly, during the election. Michelle runs the absentee ballots and everything having to do with them, okay? And her staff have been working many, many, many hours as they're sorting out thousands upon thousands. We have received close to 45,000 absentee ballots back. And I don't think a lot of people understand the process with absentee ballots. It's so secretive. People say, well, I don't want anybody else looking at my ballot. Even I can't look at the ballot, because here's what happens. Carrie over there will actually slice open the ballot, okay? She doesn't take the ballot out, she just slices the envelope. Then we always have people from two different political parties, okay? Republican and Democrat, Republican or no party affiliation, but always two different people. They always sit together and they actually open them and separate them. And if you'll notice, they move the envelope off to one side, the ballot off to the other. The envelope and the ballot will never come together again. There's nobody, including myself, that can open that thing up and look at it and see how somebody particularly voted, okay? So they will process them, and as I said, they've gone close to 45,000 right now. This might be the largest turnout we've ever had. We got in approximately 2,000 between yesterday and today. They will continue to open, and we will continue to get absentee ballots dropped off at the front of the building until probably at 7 o'clock tonight, and that's the end of the time. And what they will do when those ballots come in is they will timestamp them, so there's proof that that envelope was received by our office prior to the 7 o'clock. They will continue to do this literally all day long. After they open them up and they're ready to be processed, then they're going to sort them into the different precincts, okay? And they will sort those out, and so then we know if we have to go back and find a ballot later on because we're missing one, okay, we can actually find it through the precinct. Then they will be processed through the actual AccuVote, and that'll count the ballot, see how it voted, and then we'll download those results tonight. What's one of the things that's really interesting, Charles, that people don't understand is the number of envelopes and the number of ballots must match up, okay? And so what really kills the staff and drives Michelle and everybody in here nuts, and Paula goes crazy because they've got to find them, is what happens when you and your wife decide you're going to save 49 cents and mail us two in the same one, because then the number of envelopes and the number of ballots doesn't match up. So they have to make notes, and that happens. That oftentimes we do get that. Every once in a while we'll get a ballot that doesn't have anything on it. Sometimes we'll get a ballot that literally, okay, is not signed. If it's not signed, we cannot count it. And so I've really got to caution people, please sign the ballot. If that comes in, if this particular ballot had not been signed on the envelope, we would contact the person who sent it in, ask them to bring down an affidavit that they did sign it, some form of identification so we can count it. So we're really concerned about making sure that their vote counts. We've been getting them back now for about 2 weeks. We actually sent the military ballots out about 45 days ago because we have a lot of people from overseas. They can fax those back. I don't happen to have one right here in front of me, but they can fax those back from overseas. Those will go to the canvassing board. The canvassing board will approve it. Then staff will make a duplicate ballot because the absentee ballot will not go through the machine, so we have to make a duplicate ballot, so it'll count through the machine. And even there, if they destroy a ballot because we did it wrong, believe me, we actually have an envelope that says destroyed ballot, and we will keep track of every single one.
We had 89, and we had 19 home speech.
Sure. What we have is something called an EVID. It's an electronic poll book, and what that allows people to do is when they walk into a precinct, we take their driver's license, if they have it with them, and we just swipe it, use the magnetic stripe on their driver's license, and we can look them up immediately from that. That saves us time. It saves hunting through a book for a hard-to-spell name, miscommunication, things like that. But for that to work, and work well, we have communication that's set up between each of those EVIDs and all of the other locations across the county. That way, if someone votes in one precinct, they can't go to another precinct and try and do the same thing. Or it also allows us, if someone lives in Hillsborough County or Sarasota County and they call us, we can change their address here, and within a few seconds, it's updated at the location, and so the voter can then we can look them up on that electronic poll book and let them vote normally. So that communication, though, can be tricky because we have 70 locations. We only use this this communication method for one day. So first thing in the morning, that's a lot of what our time is spent doing, is making sure everybody's communicating properly, everything's set up, all of the correct wires are plugged in, and so that is definitely one of our hard parts. As a matter of fact, we still have a few sites that aren't communicating, and we've got people going and checking on them. Now, I say that doesn't mean that those locations can't vote. These machines also do have all of the information that was current to when we sent them out. It's just information that is getting updated throughout the day, address changes, things like that. So those precincts are still voting, but we want to make sure they're communicating so we can get all that information to them and back from them at real time. So that's a challenge, but it's also an important part, and it saves a lot of time on our side. It saves a lot of aggravation for the voters because they can go where they're supposed to go, and we can make the changes if we need to. Well, like I said, in an elections environment, it's like this on a lot of fronts. You prepare for one day, and you try and do as much testing and much as you can ahead of time. But there's a lot of variables that you can't test. There's a lot of so we do as much as we can ahead of time to make sure that everything's going to go smooth on that one day, because you don't have a lot of time to fix problems if they come up. We've done here in our phone bank is we actually used a new program that we developed to help us internally be able to determine what status different precincts are at. So if we have a problem at a precinct, we can the person who takes the phone call can indicate that there's a problem in this area, and then someone else someplace else can look at that program and say, oh, I've got a problem here, I need to look at it, I need to see what to do, and that saves a lot of volume, quite frankly, because people aren't yelling, hey, I've got a problem here, I've got this there, and it allows the people that need to see it instantly and to start addressing any problems or situations that we have. So that's one thing that we've done. So like I said, in the morning, we're focused on equipment and communication and getting everything, making sure all the equipment's working, all the communication is working properly. After all of that is settled out, and usually that, we have polls open at 7, so all of that, we get here at 5 or 5:30, the poll workers get to their precinct at 6, and so we have everything equipment-wise pretty much locked down by 7. So at 7 we get voters. So from that point forward until the end of the day, we're mostly working on voter problems or voter situations. A voter moves, like I said, from Hillsborough, a voter moves from Sarasota into our county, or a voter just moves from one part of the county to another part. And if that happens, the poll worker may not be able to find them, so they call us, we look them up, we can find them in another part of the state and we can move them in. Or if they just can't find them at all, sometimes we have more information at our disposal, and we're a little more used to the system than a poll worker using it 1 or 2 days a year, so we can find them as well. So a lot of the situations that they're dealing with right now are voter related. Where do I vote? Am I in the right spot? What ballot style should I be giving this person? And do I, how do I move them? Do I need to do a provisional ballot? Did they bring an ID with them? If a voter doesn't have any form of ID, they're required to do a provisional ballot. So all of those types of situations and questions is what really gets addressed throughout the day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's where the bulk of the phone calls are right now. The canvassing board that meets today, they'll start meeting at 5 p.m. And they'll be looking at absentee ballots, vote-by-mail ballots. They'll be looking at different exceptions to those ballots. If a voter forgot to sign the ballot, they'll be looking at those. There's a way that they can fill out an affidavit to fix that, and they'll be verifying those names, those signatures, those identifications, and then they'll also be looking if someone makes a mistake on a ballot, and it's a vote-by-mail ballot, we don't have the voter available to say, hey, you made a mistake, we'll give you another ballot. So the canvassing board has to review it, see if there's a clear intent on how the voter intended to vote that. Maybe they made an accidental mark in the wrong spot of the ballot and it just wouldn't go through. So they'll review that, they'll determine what the intent was, and we'll duplicate that ballot. The other thing that the canvassing board does, they do what's called canvassing the ballot. They review all of the results as they're coming in on election night from the different precincts to make sure that it's being done correctly, that the results don't look wrong, and that the results that we get from the precinct later on, we'll check those against the totals reports that each precinct prints to make sure that they were transferred correctly. The election, it's like a big party, and I mean a really big party. that you plan for all year long, and you got that one day to get it right. And so there's a ton of planning that goes into it. There's a ton of preparation, and a lot of things that most people don't even think about, like how does that voting booth get there? Who sets it up? How does it come back to our office? How do we make sure that you get this ballot and this person gets that ballot? So there's a lot of things that we have to make sure we get right, again, because it's a one-day deal, and if we have a mistake, there's not a lot of time to fix it. So we put a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, a lot of double checking, a lot of triple checking on everything to make sure that we get that right. And you know, we are human, the voters are human, the poll workers are human, so mistakes do get made. But our intent, our goal is a perfect election. It always is. Will we ever get there? Maybe, maybe not. But as long as there's that human element, there will be mistakes. But the process and the system is put into place to be able to identify what those mistakes are and to fix them, and to ultimately make it so that as few mistakes as possible happen.
Okay. And we were okay with the signatures?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, as we start off an election year, I send out the contracts or agreements to all the precincts to make sure that the buildings or facilities will be available to us. If there is a problem with getting a precinct available, then we have to look for a new place. And we spend some time looking for that. But most places are well aware of when the elections are going to be and do send the contracts back to us. Occasionally when we have the presidential preference, we have some conflicts, but we've been able to work that out and get a different location close by. Okay, on Wednesday of this past week, we got our vehicles and we loaded them for Thursday's delivery. What we do is we load the trucks with the voting booths here, with the ballot boxes, with the A-frame here, which is a poll location sign, and we take all the equipment to the precinct and actually deliver it. The clerks themselves will set it up the way they desire. However, we have suggested some form of setup for them. Other than that, the clerks are pretty well on their own. But we do deliver the equipment, and we take Thursday, Friday, and Monday to deliver it. We have to really have the precincts ready to go, because of the voters are going to go to these precincts, and if they're not open on time and the equipment is not working, we have a serious problem. And we certainly intend to have everything working in tip-top shape. We spent a lot of time preparing all the equipment prior to the election, and when we take it out there, we tell all our people, be careful, so don't harm it, and make sure it's all working right. Well, I really wish everybody could see exactly what goes on to make up an election, what the people do in this office, how hard they work all the time, and then we certainly want to see the people get out and vote. And I think if they realized what was happening with their tax dollars, they would get out and vote.
You know, we had some lines this morning at 7 o'clock, which we will always have lines at 7 o'clock in the morning. A lot of people don't understand that, and when they're on their way to work, so is everybody else, okay? And so we expect lines at 7 in the morning. Our biggest concern is, are we going to have a line at 10, okay? We have people coming into the office all day long to try to check on their voting precinct. They're not 100% sure. They want to make sure that they can vote. We want to send those to the right precinct. We can then do it. This will go on all day. Somewhere around 5 o'clock this afternoon, the canvassing board will come in and it'll continue to fire back up as the canvassing board is sitting down, and we will do that all the way through the end of the evening. At 7 o'clock, okay, the dance is over. And I mean, this truly is, it's such a major event for the entire United States. I mean, there's so many things riding on these elections. So our big day will actually start at 7 o'clock when we hope to upload all of the numbers. Somewhere around 7:30, quarter to 8, we will start posting results of the race, and then where people will know where they stand.
Well, first of all, the election officials, Mike Bennett and his entire staff, worked tirelessly from the beginning of the election process, which was months and months ago, to make sure that all the write-in ballots were sent out to everyone who had requested them, that all the early voting sites were set up and properly staffed to arrange for all the volunteers. Several weeks ago, we met to do what's called logistics and auditing of all of the machines. We take a sample of a certain percent of the precincts and bring the machines here into the main office where they're tabulated to run at 0. Then we have a very complex procedure where we run sample voting through all these machines to make sure that all the machines are tabulating the votes correctly. Not only exact votes, but votes which we call undervotes, where there's no vote for a particular race, or overvotes when someone votes for more than one candidate in a particular race. The machines are designed to capture all this and then to report it accurately. This is what we all rely upon. The canvassing board, of which I'm the chair, and Mike Bennett and Larry Bussell, the chairman of the county commission, the canvassing board's responsible for basically handling and deciding questionable ballots that come in. And the questions come in a variety of different types and varieties. The largest portion that we see are the envelopes themselves, which are supposed to be signed by the elector. By signing it and looking at the address on the outside of the vote, you are ensured that the vote is coming from the right person. The person swears under a penalty of perjury that what's contained in the envelope that's sealed is in fact their official ballot. But sometimes they forget to sign these exterior envelopes. So the supervisor of election sends out a written notice to the persons who submitted the flawed ballot to have them do an authorization, an affidavit, which attaches some proof of residency so we know who they are. And so the canvassing board then has to review each and every one of these hand by hand to verify that it's correct. And if they have properly verified their ability to vote, then we approve the ballot. The ballot's then opened and it's counted along with all the rest. Then there's a whole group of ballots that have the signatures. Usually it's people in the same family who have requested ballots for themselves, and each signs the other ballot. It's important when you get these ballots for more than one person in a household that you make sure when you're the voter that you're signing the one that's got your name on it and not your spouse's or roommate's or someone else's. When that happens, the canvassing board has to look at each and every one of them to verify it, and the supervisor's office is pulling the registration certificate that the person signed when they registered to vote to make sure the signature appears to match. Then we have what we call problem ballots, ballots that come in properly from early voting by mail, and the machine won't accept it for one reason or another. Sometimes there's erasures, sometimes there's a tear in the ballot. There can be any number of reasons. The canvassing board has to look at each and every one of these documents or ballots one at a time to see what the problem is, and then if it's an approved vote, the supervisor's office has to make up duplicates, which the machine will then accept. We then have to hand look at each and every one of the ballots that was not accepted and its duplicate to make sure that the duplicate was done correctly. And as you saw today, we found any number of them because the staff has been working very hard. Mistakes and mismarking happens. So the canvassing board goes through each one to make sure that if there, usually it's not a mismark, usually it's they simply didn't put in one of the candidates. So we have to make sure that it's done correctly, then we review it again, and finally we approve it. And then there are different types of problems and issues that we get. Sometimes there's an envelope that there's no ballot in it. Sometimes we receive more than one ballot in an envelope, and we have to review every one of those. And when you have, in this case, 44,000 absentee or write-in ballots, and you get a certain percent of those, it's a lot of work that goes involved. We were here yesterday at the supervisor's office from 9 o'clock in the morning till almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon, straight through, going through all of these issues and problems. And we're here tonight doing it because you could turn in your ballot by 7 o'clock. So, and we've been also waiting for verification, so we have a lot to do to make sure everything runs correctly. But today, well, this is the framework of our country, is the right to vote, and we all feel very strongly that every vote counts. We want to make sure that if a person voted, that we're going to give every benefit of the doubt as to the authenticity of the ballot to the voter, but at the same time make sure that this is in fact a correct vote. Sometimes, and we see that on the exterior of the ballots, the person writes that the voter is not capable of filling out the ballot, and so a spouse usually will say, I have a power of attorney and I'm voting for the spouse. Well, that's not the vote of the proper person. That has to be rejected. We have many ballots where the signatures just don't seem to match up, and you saw us earlier today, we study those signatures to try to find if there's a way that we can establish that the person who signed the ballot is in fact the person who registered to vote. And it's not so simple, because earlier today we had an example of a person who was born in 1930 who registered to vote in Manatee County in 1955. Today, in 2014, the signature did not seem to be matching the 1955 signature. Well, you can understand that. So we know that, and we're looking for whatever we can find that would say, yes, this is in fact the same person. It is very extensive, and the election laws have been studied and changed. And Mike Bennett, of course, he was a senator who was very prominent in our state legislature system. He has a wonderful staff that's very skilled and knowledgeable in the election laws, and they provide significant advice to us. Ultimately, though, it comes down to the canvassing board having to make some decisions on what the law really means, and then to go forward in resolving a question on a ballot that may be in doubt. Well, you don't think about it at the time, but after you've finished completing your ballot and you put it in the envelope and it instructs you on the back to sign it, make sure that you sign your regular name. Don't be in a hurry just to scribble your name, because that signature will be compared to the signature you use when you register to vote. And if you're not certain what your signature looked like because you did it a long time ago, you can always come down to the supervisor elections office after the election's over and give another exemplar to make it certain that you won't have any question as to whether your vote will be counted or not. And it'll make our job a whole lot easier.
The way he does the looping M. And so what they're doing now is, after the staff has duplicated it, the commission goes through it. We want to make sure the canvassing board is that they were marked correctly. And if not, then we remark them. So that's exactly what they're doing now. Pretty much most of our ballots will be in here in just a little short while time. And what we're doing now probably is not going to change a whole lot, but at the end of the night, we want to make sure that every single ballot is counted.
It comes home very close to me because of having been in combat and having fought with a lot of other men and women who appreciate what we do for our country. And so this brings it right to home when you look at the free process that we have here, the honest process, and we've got a judge and a county commissioner and an elected supervisor of elections looking at the ballots and ensuring that the process works and works correctly and accurately. So, one vote lost is a vote that we all go looking for, and we aren't satisfied with, it's just one vote. It can't happen. So it's a very important process, and I'm glad to be a part of it. Absolutely, and a big part of the day we've been looking at signatures, comparing the signature that's on file with the signature that's on the outside of the absentee ballot, and we do our best to say that there's a match there. One letter, the curly Q on the end of an A, or the way it's slanted, all of those go into our decisions, and we err on the side of vote counting. That's our guiding principle. So I encourage people watching this to make sure that your signature on file with the supervisor of elections is the one that you're using, and it's the one that you use on your absentee ballot. That's very important. Well, you look around the world at the way elections are managed, the way that they're conducted, and then you look at our process, and you thank the Lord that we're here in America, where every person has the right to vote, can vote, and where every vote that is cast is counted. So it's a very important process, and it's the heart of our system.